If you remember, last spring we built a traditional keyhole garden at the Studio Gardens at OSU, and today joining us is Jim Long, a Tulsa master gardener. And Jim, you have your own version of a keyhole garden here. Can you tell us about the construction of this?
It's wood, because stones are very expensive.
But it's not just regular wood, right? You actually recycled this.
It's old privacy fence.
Okay.
Takes about 3 panels to make one. We chose the wood because it was cheaper, easier to work with, and we wanted to raise the height up to accomplish what we want to do.
And what is it you're trying to accomplish?
The traditional keyhole gardens are shorter. So we're trying, the plan was to get something that would help people with physical limitations. This is stand-up gardening. You're right here.
Right.
It also produces vegetables all summer long. Since we have a shorter growing season, instead of it sitting idle in the wintertime, we're going to produce a second product of compost once a year.
Okay, so you actually have just cleaned out this garden from this summer.
Last week we cleaned it out from last year's growth.
Okay, so what do we do to get our keyhole garden, your keyhole garden, ready for this winter?
Okay, we start with the empty garden. We add about 5 inches of sticks in the bottom, nothing bigger than a broom handle, nothing longer than a foot. About 5 inches deep near the basket, tapering down.
Okay.
Then we cover that with 1.5 inches of wet cardboard in small pieces. Then we add the compost material
over there.
And
that's kitchen scraps and things like that.
Right. This is just so you can see the 3 layers. So this layer will come on around, that will come around. Then we continue to fill all fall and winter.
Okay.
Fall leaves, lawn clippings, garden scraps, kitchen vegetable scraps.
Your hanging baskets, I like that you said that.
When that hanging basket's done, you just throw the whole thing in.
Okay.
You stir it occasionally. You want to be up to here by March.
Okay.
And you're going to fill, it's going to settle. Fill and settle. It's going to be that way all winter long.
And now you have a special lining here too that's protecting the outside wood.
Without the liner, the compost would compost the compost bin. So we put this liner in here. This is 4 mil visqueen, 2 layers on each side of a piece of cardboard. So this is just cardboard wrapped in. It's just cardboard with visqueen on both sides.
Okay.
When you get up to here, preferably by March, then we add about 8 inches of something light. I use potting mix. I don't want something heavy that's going to press down.
Okay.
So we use a potting mix, and then we grow vegetables on that.
And so in our keyhole garden, we use traditional soil.
Traditional soil,
but to keep yours lighter, you're using potting soil.
Because I'm going to take it out later. You grow all summer long. Then in the fall, we skim off this potting soil and save it. Because you're going to use it again.
Okay.
Then we harvest the compost out of the bottom, we sift it, and that's their second product that makes it more worthwhile.
So now all season long you're growing plants in here.
Right.
And can you tell us what these hoops are for?
These can protect the plants in the early spring.
Okay.
If you get a late frost, you put a cover over this. You can even hang a light bulb in here and turn it into a greenhouse. It can protect it from a heavy rain. You can also use it to hold a bug screen.
Okay.
Or in August when it's blazing hot, you can put a sunscreen over it.
Oh, okay. And you actually used it to grow some Malabar spinach on it,
Malabar spinach all over this.
And that's one of your favorite crops to grow?
I use it as a filler crop to fill this.
Okay.
Because it can grow up to 1 foot a day.
And the vegetation has a lot of moisture in it,
A lot of moisture, a lot of greens in it.
So every time you're layering, do you add water to it? What's your process with that?
I try to layer in a mixture of greens and browns together.
Okay.
Mix them together, then put it in. And then every time you add something, you water it. Every time you put kitchen scraps or coffee filters or whatever in the center basket, you water through there too.
So during the summertime, when this is full of plants, you'll continue to put your compost in the center.
You can put more material in here. The water will go down, wick underneath, and feed your plants from the bottom.
Okay. And now you have a unique little door on this keyhole garden. You can explain that to us?
We put that in so that if you needed some compost in the middle of the summer, you could open that door and pull some out. to use it for a pot or
Okay.
anything else. You can also pull some out to put back in the top to maybe reboot. Maybe you have too much brown in there. It's not composting right. You can pull some of the soil from the bottom and put in the top to get the process going again.
Right. Okay. And now, what is this tool? Is what you use to
Stir this.
to turn it?
You
Okay.
have to turn that occasionally, but because it's only 16 inches, you can't be working a fork down in there.
Right.
So we use this, and you plunge it down in there. These will fold up. When you get it down in there, you kind of twist it a little bit and then pull back up, and do this 6 or 8 times is all it takes.
And so it just turns
to break that all up so that the water can go on down through.
Okay. Well, can you show us what it is you've harvested out of this garden?
We had a good year this year. We had a good fill in the spring.
So how much compost did you get?
We actually produced 32 cubic feet.
Wow.
This is good prime stuff. It'll make into a ball.
Yeah. This is beautiful.
I did a little work on, I checked on the computer for any reference to sifted compost. And sifted compost sells for about $12 a cubic foot. If you buy a pallet, you get a cut rate.
Wow. So when you take it out of the garden, does it look like this?
It looks like this.
You mentioned sifting it.
I run it through a box with 1/2-inch hardware cloth on the bottom, and everything that comes out goes through this sifter into the wheelbarrow, and then it comes over and goes into storage.
Okay. So what are you going to do with all of this compost that you have?
Part of it will go back.
Okay.
The potting mix that I grew in, I've stored it over the winter. It's in tubs. When I go to put it back on in March, I'll take 2 parts of that and mix with 1 part of this.
So you're kind of rejuvenating that potting soil a little bit.
And then I will put that in layers. You usually put it in short layers as it settles. And then as it settles, you put more on. Now the garden will settle all summer long as that compost underneath breaks down. This last year, that garden, from the time I filled it until the season was over, I think it settled about 7 inches.
And that's a good thing, because
That's a
that
good
means
thing.
it's decomposing.
That means there was more underneath.
Doesn't make it into the compost.
Most of the material will go through. There is some that doesn't break down.
Okay.
And what doesn't break down is not wasted. We put it back in. As we're adding lawn clippings or leaves, we can put a layer of that in. We can put some of this on, and eventually it will totally break down. So almost you get 100% breakdown. Maybe not the first year, but eventually you'll get 100% breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is pretty soft, and
pretty
you can
soft.
tell it is decomposing.
And some of the mulch will be half decomposed where you can actually break it apart in your hands.
So not only are you getting a spring and summer crop out of this Keyhole garden, you're also getting a byproduct in the winter time.
Yes.
Very nice. So this is a great way to utilize a Keyhole garden in a completely different way than what we presented this spring.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing this with us. Joining us next is Steve Wood, who is also a Tulsa Master Gardener, and your main interest is composting.
Absolutely.
So obviously you worked with Jim Long on this Keyhole garden, which is a fun take on a Keyhole garden. Can you tell us how this came about?
Cup of coffee. Jim and I were trying to come up with ideas that would spark interest in gardening with children. And we wanted it to be really different. And we tried the thought of maybe tires cut and stacked and make a compost garden that way. But Jim actually came up with this particular idea because he talked with another master gardener, and we stole the idea from her.
So sharing ideas amongst
It's
master
constant,
gardeners,
yes.
right? So you obviously have a Lego garden,
That is
Keyhole
the theme.
garden here, and we've got these, and this is made out of concrete, or?
Yeah, it's a mixture that, again, Jim came up with to put in there to make it look like caps for a Lego.
Very nice, very nice. And our man here, what's the
Love
role
the
that,
man.
what's the role he's serving?
He is a master
Master
gardener.
gardener, we got the t-shirt
Yes,
on there.
and he is also a Lego man. He can carry more than one hat.
Very nice. And what's underneath him? Is that where our Keyhole composting?
That underneath him is where the Keyhole starts. There's a basket that he sets over,
Okay.
and we can remove him and fill it up or take it out as whatever we need to do.
Very nice. So it allows that rainfall to go off onto the garden and not
Yes,
necessarily onto the compost.
Don't oversoak. Uh-huh.
Very good. So we're here at Global Gardens at Eugene Field Elementary.
Isn't this a neat place?
It's beautiful here, and can you tell us why you chose this place to do this, and what does it mean to the kids to have this here?
Well, the kids that work this garden, I did a tour. They do a tour ever so often, and they talk about their garden. Mm-hmm. And when I mean their garden, I'm talking about a particular raised bed or a stone area, and they can tell you why they garden. And I've never heard an adult explain it the way they do, and the pride that they have. And then they explain what they've learned in gardening. And it's like, when you talk to an adult, you give them an idea, you might get one or two aha moments. Mm-hmm. With a child, it's like a machine gun of aha moments.
So are they learning about composting through this process?
In fact, there are some that can explain it to you in detail. They like to give a tour of the compost, and they'll tell you it needs 4 ingredients, and you have to mix the green and the brown this way, and then add the water and of course turn it to get your air. They are so full of pride of what they do. It's wonderful, and it's contagious.
Very nice. And you've had this at the Home and Garden Show before on display, but it is in its permanent location now, right? Because it's heavy.
At 1,600 plus pounds, plus it's got a footing. We don't move this one.
Okay, all right.
But I tell you, it's an eye catcher, and the kids like to talk about it. So,
well, it's in a good home, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. And I think it's unique because this is just a person's take on how to do a keyhole garden, and it's another unique idea.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.